7 WWE wrestlers who've done major prison time and the reasons why. Montel Vontavious Porter, Hassan. Ahmed Assad, born with the birth name of Alvin Antonio Burke Jr., is a pro WWE wrestler. He acts under the stage name MVP, which means Montel Vontavious Porter. He joined WWE in 2005 and is super famous for being a WWE Tag Team Champ, two-time WWE United States Champ, and his shows in New Japan Pro Wrestling and Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. He was also the first IWGP Intercontinental Champ. After he finished training with Norman Smiley and Solman Alex G, he began wrestling for many small indie groups, but not lots of folks know that at the super young age of 12, he joined a graffiti gang which turned into a street gang later. His time with the gang even put him in a juvie lockup where he stayed 6 months for a robbery, different from the Hardy brother at the end of this video, whose problems come from drug use. When MVP was only 16 years old, he got hit with 18 and a half years in jail for kidnapping and armed robbery. While in prison, MVP turned to Islam and switched his name, though he is now an atheist. He got out on parole after doing 9 years, and it was his parole guy who helped him train to be a pro wrestler. Sadly, his old crime record bugs him even today, and every time he travels to other countries for tours, he has to pass background checks for his new actions and get needed permits. Wowza, of God's sake. Booker T. Robert. Booker T.O. Huffman Jr., better known as Booker T, is a pro wrestling boss and pro wrestler signed to WWE. Wrestling experts and friends have called Booker one of the best pro wrestlers of his time, and he was also picked as WWE's greatest world heavyweight champ in 2013. Booker is a 6-time world champ, and with 21 titles, he is also the most titled wrestler in the history of WCW. It's obvious that the WWE Hall of Famer is one of the biggest stars in wrestling, but before he was famous as a WWE world champ, he did have a crime past, and he probably has the most famous story of a wrestler who fixed their life. Back in the day, Booker worked at Wendy's. One day, Booker and some of his work buddies chose to rob other Wendy's spots. But since they kept their Wendy's uniforms on during the robbery, it was simple for cops to find out who the bad guys were and catch them. Booker got a 5-year sentence for bad robbery, but got out on parole after doing 19 months. Booker himself has said that jail was the best thing that ever happened to him because he got a chance to stop and think over his whole life. Hardbody Harrison Norris Jr., better known as Hardbody Harrison, is a past WCW wrestler and one who's right now doing big time in jail. He wasn't really famous for winning fights, but more for losing them. He trained at the WCW Power Plant Pro Wrestling School and started in World Champs at wrestling as a jobber in 1995. He had a few shows, including the 97 Starrcade and WCW's Monday Night Nitro, but after WCW was bought by WWE, Harrison's deal wasn't taken, so he chose to quit pro wrestling. His name won't be remembered for his work wins, though, but for the bad things that he did. In 2005, scary claims were made against him saying that Harrison kept 8 women locked up as slaves in his house. As it came out, he tricked them in by promising to find homes for them and help with money. He would then lock them in one of his homes in Cartersville. The women said that they were not only made to do chores around his house, but he also made them do wrong actions. And if they didn't listen to him, he'd hit them and scare their lives. If they broke his rules or they didn't finish all the jobs, the women also had to pay him and ended up owing him cash in a loop that never stopped. He was finally caught when the women told the police about what was going on with them. Harrison chose to be his own lawyer during the trial. What did he have to say to the claims made against him? Well, he said that the women were living in his house because he was helping them stop drugs and he was training them to be wrestlers. But even with the tries to lie his way out of this, he got a fair punishment and was sentenced to life in jail in 2007. Blackjack Mulligan, Robert DeRoy Wyndham, better known as Blackjack Mulligan, was a pro wrestler and the older of the Wyndham wrestling family that has his sons, Kendall Wyndham and Barry Wyndham, grandsons Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt, and son-in-law Mike Rotunda. The Hall of Famer was a strong guy in the NWA groups between the 60s and 80s. He wrestled in the Jim Crockett groups, WWF, and held the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship. He was famous for his iron claw hold and the cool look that had a black hat, fingerless gloves, and trunks. However, Blackjack got on the bad side of the law in 1990. Blackjack and his son Kendall were caught by the U.S. Secret Service for making fake money, and the catch was part of a team check with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. As you may know, the thing is pretty bad when the Secret Service guys come. During the raid, the cops found $500,000 in fake $20 bills. Both dad and son did 2 years in jail as part of a deal. Mulligan later said in a talk that Reagan's real estate rules left him hurting for cash with land, and he and a few others thought it would be a simple way to get the money. But they were wrong. Lex Luger, Lawrence Wendell Fall, better known as Lex Luger, is best known for his work with the World Wrestling Federation, World Championship Wrestling, and Jim Crockett Promotions. He's a WWE World Heavyweight Champ, WCW United States Heavyweight Champ, and WCW World Heavyweight Champ. He's also super liked by fans and was chosen as the most popular wrestler of the year by Pro Wrestling Illustrated readers in '93. But that was until his fall started. Like many other wrestlers, Luger got hooked on drugs and added quite a few catches to his name over the years. In 2003, for example, he was charged with a small count of battery for hitting his girlfriend, Elizabeth Gillette, who was known as Miss Elizabeth in the wrestling world. He was later let out on bond, but got caught a couple of days later for driving drunk without a license. Even with the hit, the couple surprisingly stayed together until a surprise turn of events. Ms. Elizabeth died from an clear overdose later that year, and it was called an accident. But during the check done in their shared home, a huge amount of bad drugs were found. Luger was caught and sentenced to 5 years of probation. With random drug tests and was told to pay a $1,000 fine. Some say that he got off pretty easy, but Luger then tried to cross borders and ended up breaking terms of his probation. As a result, he was sentenced to 4 months in jail with a credit of 1 month for time served. Ken Patera. Ken Patera is a retired strongman guy, weightlifter, and pro wrestler who wrestled mostly as a bad guy during the 70s and 80s for the World Wrestling Federation, American Wrestling Association, and National Wrestling Alliance. Patera has always been known for being super fit and strong, so before becoming a good pro wrestler, he was a highly awarded Olympic weightlifter and even won several medals. Now, Patera is not really known for making trouble outside the ring. However, there is this. One thing that put him on our list. In 1984, Ken Patera was told no service at a local McDonald's in Wisconsin. The place looked open, but was really closed. So Patera got mad and threw a rock through a window. It's amazing what being hungry can do to folks. According to Patera, it was a mad worker that threw the rock, but he was blamed for it. However, the thing didn't stop there. Patera went back to his hotel, where he was staying with a fellow wrestler, Masasato. And when police came to the hotel, he and Sato started hitting the officers who came to catch them. 16 months after that happened, Patera was sentenced to 2 years in jail for the hit of a police officer. He was let out after a year and a half on good behavior. Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy is a pro wrestler who is thought to be one of the most famous superstars of this WWE group. He is known for being a Raw Tag Team champ and WWE champ. Before, Hardy had wrestled with Ring of Honor, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, and several groups on the indie circuit. Before getting big in the WWE, he worked with his brother, Matt Hardy, who was also a DVR wrestler. They got known as the wrestling tag team, the Hardy Boys. Hardy had also had a good career as a single wrestler. He won 6 World Championships, 5 WWE Intercontinental Championships, 3 WWE Hardcore Championships, and many others. He was given lots of help and a big stage by the company because he really fit the WWE's dream. But that was until problems with drug use made WWE let him go in 2009. Over the years, his hook landed him in a jail cell more than a couple times. In 2009, Hardy was caught and charged with selling and controlled prescription pills, having controlled substances, and drug stuff. After making a plea deal, he was sentenced to just 10 days in jail, a $100,000 fine, and probation for 30 months. But the troubles with the law didn't stop there. He was also caught once for public drunk in 2019 and for driving bad later that year. Click on the playlist to left to binge watch more celebrities and famous people who've rotted in jail and the reasons why. We'll see you there. Threes.